Live, and according to this, I am now live. And I guess that's where I can mute that. And are you now successfully viewing? Stand by, folks. Technical difficulties. Okay. There might be. Can you hear me? Test. Something else. Testing. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow. And everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
Okay, it's extremely late.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Huh. Not sure what to do with that. And, well.
Just getting to the part where you're saying, like, you just said test.
Oh, lordy, that is delayed. Well, all right then. Thanks for coming. This is going to be recorded as well and be available on YouTube, so you can go back and watch it whenever you might like. That basically, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to answer any questions that people might have, and also discuss about some of the broader concepts that I had with the cafe, and didn't really have time to talk about them in the video because the video was already pretty long at 10 minutes. It was originally like 14 minutes, so I didn't want to do that. And the reason why I'm going for a cafe is because, as I said in the video, that having someplace to go, having someplace to hang out, having someplace, just go, you go when you feel like you belong. The Cheers theme or something like that is important to, I think, most sane human beings. And it's important to me. And I just, like I said in the video, pubs and bars and lots of the other kind of like traditional hangout places, I've never really been attracted to them. There are certain elements to them. One of the biggest ones is obviously alcohol. Everyone going to these places is usually drinking alcohol, and I have no problems. I'm not like a prohibitionist or anything like that, but I don't very much like alcohol. I just don't really like the taste of it. But also, I've got a lot of problems with alcohol in my family, and just it has stripped emotional positivity away from it. And I have a great deal of emotional positivity when it comes to coffee and tea and biscuits and all the other sort of relaxed things where you sit around your drinks and knit or something like that. And I really wanted to take that into a different direction because most of the cafes around here do two things. They have the whole Euro chic aesthetic, where they've got the nice little Euro designed backgrounds and paintings and chairs, and they also have a very heavy focus on the morning crowd, because a lot of cafes, the morning crowd can constitute something crazy, 75% of their business. So their business becomes a little bit like overrun with a focus on morning people in that Euro chic. I didn't want to concentrate on that. I mean, the morning people are an important part of any cafe business, but I wanted to expand that into the late night crowd, the people that would be there, say, after 9 o'clock, and also the afternoon crowd, the people that would be coming through traditional, like the drive-ins at Starbucks. And that is, parents and stay-at-home parents, people that might have the day off from work or something like that. And that's the reason why I've got so much child-oriented stuff at the cafe in the afternoon, because I wanted to help cater to the parents that just want to spend an hour doing something, anything. But I'll talk about more of that later. The other reason why I want to get into the cafe is because having a really nice cafe, having something that is really great is like, it's rare. There aren't that many of them, because for the cafe to work, all of the elements of the cafe have to work well with one another. You have to have really excellent coffee. You have to have really excellent espresso. You have to have excellent food. Everything that the cafe is doing has to be awesome. And very frequently, that's just not the case. Lots of cafes have decent food selections, bagels and English muffins and things like that, but their espresso is just god awful. I mean, the espresso is just terrible at some of these locations, and you can watch them. You can watch and see, obviously, that the I almost said barista. The baristas are very poorly trained. Like you get it out, there's barely any crema on it. The milk has been steamed to oblivion. The bubbles are gigantic. There's no texture to the milk. There's no nothing. There's no artistry. There's no craft. There's no training involved in the drink. And there are lots of cafes in Rhode Island that do that, and I want to avoid overlapping with a lot of them. But most of them are in the downtown areas of Providence. Dave's Coffee just recently opened up on North Main in Providence. Dave's Coffee is fantastic. Coffee Exchange, legendary place. Coffee Exchange is fantastic. And what else is down there? There's another one over in Wayland Square on the east side of Providence. This is also very nice. I forget the name of the cafe, though. But regardless, I mean, all of these are pretty nice cafes. 7 Stars Bakery, there's another great one that obviously trains their baristas very well. And all of this is really important. But still, even in their training, even in the quality, the fact that what they're doing well, they're bringing it to the table. They aren't doing anything different. 7 Stars Bakery is closed by 6 o'clock. Coffee Exchange is coffee, and that's pretty much it. Although they do have a really wonderful selection of whole bean coffee. If you're interested, go to Coffee Exchange for whole bean coffee. And lots of other cafes, because so much of their business is in the morning, they don't even bother opening up later at night. And 7 Stars Bakery is one of those places. And I wanted to push beyond that. I wanted to figure out, all right, these places are closing for a good reason. Why are they closing? They're not getting the business that is necessary to maintain profitability after, in some of their places, some of these cases, 4 in the afternoon. They close at 4, where they cater to the morning crowd, and that's pretty much it. Some of them will stay open to get the getting out of work crowd, and then they're done. All right, well, how do I expand the business? How do I figure out, how do I target these people? There are people out there that when this store is closed, that is an economic space that is being taken up, that is not generating value for its employees, not generating value for the surrounding businesses. Because when you have a business that's open, that attracts people into it, that means that other businesses around that business have an opportunity to benefit. So you, as a good business, want to try to maximize the benefit to the businesses that are around you. You don't want, no man is an island. No business is an island. No business should be exclusively concerned with its own little plot of economic territory. All of these businesses should be concerned with the fabric of which that business is a part. So I don't want to be closed. I mean, obviously there are limitations where, any business, unless you're really specialized, has to be closed by like 11 or 12, because there aren't that many people out. But although even then, we're gonna put a pin in that, that I would like to be open later than that. But So I wanted to push the business model forward and figure out how to cater to these people, how to be better for these demographics and for these markets that just aren't being catered to, and thus be better for everyone. And in my view, for a cafe, that comes from expanding the business model of the cafe. What else can I do? What else fits into the cafe? So I've got the library in there. And actually adding like a book swap or a library isn't an entirely novel idea. A number of other cafes have done similar things to that in the past. I was sort of brain fart. I have done stuff like that in the past, but they don't really go very far with it. And again, in my motto is, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. If you're going to have a book swap or a library in your cafe, you don't just have one little shelf or a little box with a cute little hand-drawn sign above it that says book swap. You dedicate a large amount of your cafe to this endeavor. And if you decide that it's not worth the labor hours, either for you or for an employee, to go in and maintain this, then get rid of it. Don't bother. If you're not going to do it fully, don't bother doing it at all, because that small amount of more or less wasted effort that you are putting into this smaller thing could be better applied to other things. And that's where you should be applying your energies. So the library at UMSD, when I say that it's as big and as vibrant as I can manage, I truly mean that. I'm going to wedge bookshelves everywhere I can. I'm going to have books. I'm going to have DVDs. I'm going to have comic books and magazines and video games, all available for takeout. I'm going to heavily curate the library to make sure that there's always a good number of books, classics. I'm going to hit up library book sales on a regular basis to go trolling there for good things, and it's just going to be large. And I'm not joking. As soon as the cafe opens, I'm going to start construction on the outside little library. And you briefly see a website in the Kickstarter video for little libraries. Little free libraries are a thing that was started, I think, in South Korea, and they have since expanded all throughout the world, with lots of people starting them. And they're just these cute little boxes, sometimes no bigger than a relatively large mailbox, sitting on the side of the road. And then you go in, you say, I've created a little free library. You go to the Little Free Library's website, you punch in the location and say, here's the location of a Little Free Library. Once again, I don't do anything half-hearted. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. If it's worth putting a little free library on the side of the road, you don't have it the size of a large mailbox. You have it the size of a freaking TARDIS. Yeah, and if you're going to have the size of a TARDIS, in my mind, you make it a TARDIS. So I'm going to have that TARDIS out for that police call box is going to be out and filled to the brim with books. And it's accessible all the time. You can go in and get all of the books whenever you would like. And there are considerations that I will be getting into when I talk about some of the other in a moment, because I want to talk about the computers first. How many of you remember the internet cafes from the 1990s? I never really went to the internet cafes or the cyber cafes because I was one of the lucky ones that always had relatively high-speed internet. Back in the 1990s, my family was one of the first families around here to have a DSL line. And then we were some of the first to get Cox Cable when that came out. And because of that, we had the always-on internet connection. And so the attraction of going to an internet cafe was never there, even though one of the more famous internet cafes actually opened up in Boston, Cybersmith. They're long gone. But with the rise of broadband and a broad adoption of internet access throughout the United States population, and also the development of Wi-Fi hardware and cheap laptops really kind of was the death knell for cyber cafes. You know, why bother going to one of these places? But that doesn't mean that a lot of people don't want to have to haul their laptop to a cafe. They might not have access to a regular computer. And if this wasn't the case, then like that photo that I showed of, I think it was a library in Houston, that photo that I showed of all the people using the computers at that Houston library, then they wouldn't be using the computers there. Or the local libraries. I go there and I see that the computers are usually filled with people at the library using the computers. That means that there are people out there that need these computers. There's value there. And I would like to get them in the cafe. I would like to give them the opportunity to come in and have a nice environment where they can buy a drink, because not only is it I got like chilblains under my armpit or something. Not only does it give them the opportunity to come to these computers, but also gives me an opportunity for a sale, and that's always positive. And I'm going to have many computers in the cafe, because I build my own computers, so I'm able to build all of my own computers, do all of my own software installs, do all my own management. I don't have to hire anyone to do any of that. So I'm going to have just a large number of, or not large number, but as many as I can manage, as many computers as I can fit reasonably in the cafe will be in the cafe, available for use at all times. And now the considerations with all of this. That whenever you're giving anything away, you have to be at least somewhat concerned with people coming in and taking inordinate advantage of what you're giving away. And in a lot of cases, if what you're giving away is very small in comparison to what you are selling, then you don't have to be terribly concerned with that. But if I'm going to have a TARDIS full of books out front, some dickhead might come by and decide that he's going to steal all the books out of the TARDIS for no reason, just because he's an asshole. And I say he because I seriously doubt a woman would do that. Or someone comes in and goes onto the computers in the cafe and decides that he's going to install viruses or malware on every single one of them, or some idiot kids are going to come in and it's like Pornhub, midget bestiality porn, and on all of the computers. So when Aunt Milga comes in and sits down, the first thing that she sees is midget bestiality porn on Pornhub. And basically, these are considerations that I think a lot of businesses use to justify their not even bothering to go through with these things that might require that one little bit of work, that one little bit of work on their part, that one little bit of dedication. And for me, that's not an issue, because my dream is making the cafe. That I said that I'm an artist at heart in the video, and I mean, I sound like such an arrogant blowhard when I say that, but I want everything that I do to be done well. I want everything that I do to be done beautifully in a way. I want the business of the cafe itself to be art. I want the business model itself, I want it to be art. I want the cafe's functioning. I want the machine of the cafe to be this beautiful thing that works well. And because of that, I'm not in it because I think that it's going to be just cute or fun to own a cafe, or, well, this is cute, now I'll be able to earn my money this way. I'm going to be spending a lot of my money on the cafe because I want to spend a lot of my time at the cafe. I don't want to run the cafe so I can afford nice shit for my house. I want to run the cafe so I can afford more nice shit for the cafe. And so I think that's where there might be a little bit of a mental disconnect between me and other people that are not interested in making that extra step, making that extra bit of dedication to really going in and taking every element of their cafe and just pushing it to the limit, pushing it to the extreme. Because of that, I'm fine dealing with the issues that will exist by giving away computers and by giving away books and giving away access to all of these things. Where if someone comes in and steals all of the books out of the TARDIS, I'll file a police report and go through all of that sort of good stuff. But I will just simply fill the TARDIS back up. I'll put more books out there. If people come in and look up Pornhub every day on the computers, like teenagers have a tendency to do at the Apple Store, for example. The Apple Store deals with idiot teens coming in every day and setting every MacBook that's on display, every iPad that's on display to some hardcore smut site. And then those teenagers run away giggling as though they're the first ones who thought to do this. And Apple deals with it. They deal with it because they know that it's important to get people engaged. They know that this problem is small in comparison to the benefits that it provides to their business, to their customers, to everything. Because a good business also doesn't just concern itself with making money. A good business concerns itself with how much is it providing. This is where kind of like that libertarian capitalist flip-flop happened back in the 1980s, where you had we're really 1970s, but 1980s primarily. This flip-flop that happened where the job of a business person is to figure out how can we make money from whatever the hell we're doing. And that's not the right answer, or that's not the right question to ask. If you're always asking the question, how can we make money, you're doomed. Inevitably, someone is going to come along that will put you out of business. When you're concerned with profit, you are unstable. Instead, you should be concerned with how much can we give our customers? How much can we provide to our customers while still earning money, while still being in business? And when your profits get high enough, you're like, oh, our profits are now very high. How can we provide yet more? Always be pushing, always be trying to provide more. So I want to provide new ways, new types of coffee delivery. How can I remove the cafe from these equations in many ways? How can I how can I speed up the process? How can I change the business model? What can I give away and still make money? How much of it can I give away? I want to, so all of these things, you always provide, always give. The more you can provide for free, the better, because that gets the most people engaged. You always want people engaged, and there's this idea in sort of like neo-socialist thinking, and it started way the hell back, but it's called wage slavery, where in a modern capitalist system, you can't get anything without a wage. You can't get food without a wage. You can't live a simple life basically without a wage. And there are so few things out there just for people to go out and do. That's the reason why the beaches, you'll notice that the beaches in Rhode Island have seen record attendance numbers every single year for the last 5 years. And those record attendance numbers continue to go up because people are desperate for free things to do. How can we provide entertainment for ourselves and for our family for not a lot of money? And so many businesses ignore these people. They don't care about these people. You don't have money, we're not interested in you. Well, if you don't have money, I am interested in you. I am interested in trying to be a good part of your life. And I would like you to be a good part of my life. I want to provide as much to people that really can't even afford my drinks. You know, like, you can't afford my drinks, that's fine. Show up on movie night and I'm going to have cheap popcorn and cheap drinks available. They're not going to be, you know, the finest espresso drinks available, but I'm going to have cheap popcorn and cheap drinks and free movies. And they're going to be classic movies too. You can come in, you can enjoy these cheap drinks and this free movie and this good company, and I'll be glad that you are there. I'll be glad that you're engaged in the cafe, and that the cafe and I have been able to be a good part of your life. This is all of these disparate ideas that I've just kind of like spent the last half hour rambling off, kind of form the foundation of the motivation for UMST. That I want it to be very different from other cafes. I want it to be something that is fundamentally different from other cafes and other businesses. And even if that fundamental difference only translates into sometimes not directly apparent differences, then that's fine, because I mean the fundamentals are there. There will always be slight differences. There are always going to be things that are better. So that allows me to segue into events. I briefly mentioned things like the movie night. The other thing, because again, I want to cater to the markets and people out there that are not currently being catered to by the cafes that are out and available, is stuff aimed at children. And I hate kids, but at the same time, I love kids. I hate kids because kids are jerks. But at the same time, I love kids because they honestly are the future of our civilization. They don't have our prejudices yet. They don't have our problems. They don't have our views and beliefs cemented in place that prevent them from evolving and changing and becoming wiser. So children are this thing that, we don't, politicians pay lip service to kids. Organizations and companies pay lip service to kids, like Hasbro and Mattel. Hasbro and Mattel don't give a shit about your children. They want, because they're that other type of business. They're trying to figure out how can they make money off of you. And that's very sad, because I think that toys are a wonderful way to enrich children's lives. And the fact that Hasbro and Mattel aren't at all interested in enriching your child's life. They're only interested in sucking as much money away from you as possible. I would like to be a part of enriching a child's life and making your life as a parent a little bit easier for an hour. So children's movie hour, where basically the television will get turned over to cartoons. And not just cartoons. I'm not just going to throw Fairly Odd Parents on there or something, because most cartoons nowadays are terrible. I'm going to put older cartoons on there that they might not know. And one that always comes to mind, because my wife actually introduced me to it a little while ago, and I love it, is Unico. And it's this bizarre Japanese animation from the early 1980s. And I throw that up on the TV. And then you can plop yourself down, watch it with your kid, just drink a coffee, read a magazine, read one of the books that's available in the library, sit down at one of the computers, browse the web, and let your kid watch Unico. And like other ones that I remember as a kid. I'm in my early 30s, so a lot of new parents are probably going to be in a similar age bracket to me. So you might remember a lot of these cartoons as well. A lot of cartoons from the late 70s and 80s. Captain Caveman and the Teen Angels. I've always loved that show just because Captain Caveman is one of the funniest characters ever created. So I put Captain Caveman on the TV. I put Banana Man or Duckula. Just give all these kids an opportunity to enjoy all of these great cartoons from an era before cartoons were so depressingly commoditized that if a cartoon does not sell toys, it gets canceled. It doesn't even matter if the ratings are good. Genndy Tartakovsky, the guy that created Dexter's Lab and Hotel Transylvania, recently the movie, used to do all of his work with Cartoon Network. And he had a falling out with Cartoon Network a number of years ago after he created a show called Symbiotic Titans. And it was a cool show, and it was a big hit for Cartoon Network. That the ratings that it was bringing in were actually very good, but its toys weren't selling. And because of that, it got canceled. And Tartakovsky was like, "No, screw you, I'm leaving," and he did, and he jumped ship to Sony, which is the reason why that's where Hotel Transylvania got made. But that tells you everything you need to know about the way that these corporations view your children. They don't care what your kids like. They don't care what these messages they're delivering to your kids might teach them about being a good person or being an adult or growing or honor or wisdom. They don't care about any of that. And I would love to reach back to a time where even if they were ham-fisted about it, like the Don't Do Drugs episodes of cartoons, or like Captain Planet. I mean, Captain Planet was a UN convention. They had every race, ethnicity, and creed purposely represented in that show. It was as subtle as a chainsaw, but at least they tried. They at least tried. And I want to reach back and grab those things and represent them in an environment where your kids' attentions will be on it, separate from all of this marketing, separate from all this. I want that to be a part of the cafe. I want this to be an enriching, entertaining environment. And the second part of that enriching, entertaining environment is food, where, again, these corporations don't give a shit about your kids. And that applies to the food companies out there as well. And that includes companies like McDonald's. But I mean, it's lampooning McDonald's has become positively passe. But also other companies that don't really make an effort at all to cater to children. And sometimes kids are just picky jerks. But other times, and again, this is where respecting children as independent entities comes into play. People always make fun of kids like, "Oh, you don't like broccoli or asparagus," and that's gone all the way back for the last 100 years. I mean, the last 5 generations have laughed about that. But the thing is, kids might not actively like the taste of it. Broccoli might taste different to a kid than it tastes to you. I remember hating Brussels sprouts as a kid, but when I became an adult, now I love Brussels sprouts. And it's not because my palate evolved. I think that they did actually taste bad to me as a kid, and now they don't. So it's not necessarily kids being picky little jerks. It might be their taste buds, the way that they experience the world in all ways is very different. So the fact that so few companies think about that, they're like, all right, well, how are these kids experiencing the world? How can we take that into account when creating foods and drinks that are still healthy for them? That parents don't have to feel guilty about doing this, like feeding their kids this. How can we provide something like that? And that's going to be a major part of Children's Movie Hour, where I'm going to constantly experiment with different types of sandwiches, different types of sides, different types of drinks. How do we best get a wide array of acceptable, healthy foods in front of your kids such that they're happy with what they're eating? And then you can sit down again, enjoy your coffee, browse Pornhub on one of the computers, because I know that you're doing that, you pervert. Provide for them just for that hour. And I think that'll also just be great because it's an opportunity to bring your kids in for a little bit of socializing with other kids. during the summer when your kids are out of kindergarten or preschool, or your kids are, before preschool age, before that time, bring them in. And I mean, I would imagine that, most kids will probably reach a max age of, like 6 or 7. Coming into something like this, so anything below that, because after 6 or 7, I would imagine that you've bought them a tablet by now just to get them to shut up, and that's fine. Bring them in. We'll have free Wi-Fi in the cafe as well. Actually, we're going to put a pin in the free Wi-Fi thing as well. Yeah, that pretty much says everything that I wanted to say about kids. Just that, to recap, kids, there should be more things out there that help cater to kids. There are more things out there that should provide to children. And I really very much want to be a part of providing to your kids, and enriching their lives and making your life easier. Because one of the reasons why a lot of, I think, parents go to McDonald's is just because it's easy. You go to McDonald's, yeah, you can find something that you like, but the important thing is that you're just shutting up the kids. You know that they're going to like this, you know that they're going to enjoy it. And, to best compete with McDonald's, I might go so far as to actually have toys included with the Happy Meals, or with the movie meals, where they come in every day and they get a little toy. And thankfully, one of the people that I have in my team, is an MBA, and he has dealt with manufacturing. Overseas manufacturing, local manufacturing, buying, acquisitions, all that sort of good stuff. And I should be able to get fun little toys manufactured for very cheap. And actually, this will be great because I'll be able to design the toys myself, because again, I'm able to do a lot of what needs to be done myself. And I don't mind doing this. I mess around in my computer all day long anyhow, so the fact that I'm going to be messing around in my computer for a little bit more to design some toys, well, I'm going to be in front of my computer anyhow, might as well design some toys. So do everything that I can to cater to the kids, cater to the parents, cater to these markets that current cafes, current restaurants, current everything are not catering to, and make, push that business model forward, make life easier for them, and make the cafe more valuable for them. So what can we talk about now? Food. I'm not going to have a great deal of food initially in the cafe. I'm going to restrict the cafe predominantly to drinks. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One, this is my first food service endeavor. And food service is difficult. And it requires just a knowledge of and experience in the ebb and flow of product and customers and the way things move and work. And you have to be aware of the way that these things work, or you run the risk of spoilage, and you run the risk of having to throw out a lot of food. And anyone who's seen Kitchen Nightmares with, what the hell is his name? Gordon Ramsay, that raving maniac. You've seen that one of the most common things that he finds is that you have a lot of spoiled food or expired food, because these restaurants didn't know how to correctly manage their food supplies. And that is difficult. I don't want to fall into that quicksand. I know how to manage drinks. I know how to manage tea. I know how to manage coffee. I know how to manage the green coffee beans coming in and to roast them on time. And I know how to manage all of that. And that's actually not terribly hard, so I'm not a genius for knowing how to do that. So I know how to do all of that, and I'm going to start off with a small selection of food that is also kind of philosophically determined. Where I don't like ultra sweet stuff. I hate a lot of sugar, and so many pastries are just, oh God, they're just sugar bombs nowadays. There's no subtlety, there's no texture to them. Fine pastries and fine breakfast pastries and things like that are delicious because they're a very subtle balance of sweet and savory. And what's a good example? A croissant with like jam on it. I mean, that's just, unbelievably delicious. And so I'm going to have croissants, fresh baked croissants. I have a company out in California that does pastries that they then freeze on racks, and then they send out to you and you bake them. So I'm going to be dealing with them until, I don't know, maybe I can source from local bakeries as well, because I like to integrate as much local bakeries, as many local bakeries as I can, or maybe even sourcing from just local at-home bakers. That might even be a better idea. You'll get, actual just people in their houses involved, and give them a presence for a venue for their products. But once I get moving, I'm going to start expanding the food selection more. The food selection is never going to be huge, and the focus is always the drinks. At least from an adult perspective. For the kids, that's not the case, but from the adults, the drinks are always the focus. And brain fart. The drinks are the focus, so pastries, croissants, muffins. I love muffins and I love high fiber stuff. I'm gonna have lots of high fiber breakfast cookies, superfood cookies. And one thing that I would like is a really wide selection of really excellent muffins. And muffins, and also I think bagels. It's really disappointing that it's hard to get really great bagels around here. I think that if some Jews from Manhattan ever came up here, they would faint from shock at seeing what we call bagels in Rhode Island. I want to get some really great bagels, and I want to have a really huge muffin selection. You can go to Seven Stars Bakery, and their muffins are fantastic. I mean, really wonderful muffins. But the usual, well, no, I don't want to do that. I want to focus on the muffins. I want to have like 10 varieties of really fantastic artisan muffins. Because again, don't do something half-hearted. If you're going to have muffins, you have some freaking muffins. I mean, you got tons of muffins. I guess that pretty much says everything that I'd want to say about food. Don't really know where else to go with that. There was another point that I put a mental pin in. It's in there somewhere. Huh? Oh, right. Thank you. One of the other things I'm going to be giving away is free Wi-Fi. And everyone gives away free Wi-Fi, I'm going to get a little bit technical for a minute. One of the problems with free Wi-Fi is that it's broadcasting radio waves from the Wi-Fi router, and it's receiving radio waves. But the issue is that it doesn't matter how many people are around it. It only has one path in and out. One signal path goes. If you heard that on the mic, I apologize. It only has one signal path in and out of the router. And that is a major problem, because if you have two people on a router and both of them are downloading video as quickly as they can. They're not really going to notice too much of an issue because the router sends one bit to them, another bit to them, one bit to them, another bit to them. So they don't really notice a great deal of slowdown. Routers, the problem with a router is not with how much an individual person is sucking up, but how many people are connected. Because you only have that one channel in and out. And if you have a whole bunch of people all trying to connect, that means that all of them are basically getting in line for their little microsecond bit of access to the router, and then they go back around to the back of the line and have to wait for all the other people to get their microsecond bit of access to the router, and they go around like that. That's the reason why when you go to like a Panera Bread and it's really busy, why the internet is basically useless. Not only does Panera Bread's Wi-Fi suck in general, but they only have that single router. One of the ways you can get around that is by having multiple routers. And I'm going to have multiple routers in the cafe. You've got to set them up on different channels, but once again, it's an advantage because I know how to do all of this. So I can go in and set up my own routers, set up my own Wi-Fi connections. And the other thing is actual wired connections, the Cat5 internet cable. And as Wi-Fi has become more popular, that's become less common. But I'm going to have in the walls Cat5 access, network access walls. Again, if you're going to provide internet access, you don't half-ass it. Here is something that you're saying, here, we want you to use this so you can have a better experience at our cafe. But if their experience on your Wi-Fi is crap because of all of the people in it, that's your fault. That means that Wi-Fi is not providing value. You are not going in and fixing a problem with an element of your business. And that's unacceptable. You go in and you fix it. So the ways that I can fix it are the aforementioned multiple routers and direct cable access everywhere. And a lot of places a lot of people don't have Wi-Fi, don't have Cat5 cables just kind of lying around. So I will even provide small little lengths of Cat5 cable so people can bring their laptops in and plug directly into the wall. And once again, maybe people will steal those Cat5 cables. That's fine. The Cat5 cable lengths that I'm talking about are going to be, a couple of feet long, which will cost me 10 cents. But again, you don't, as a business, you don't use an excuse, oh, well, the customers are gonna do this, so I can't. No, you are in business. You are taking money that someone else could have taken. That means that it is your job to figure out an answer to that problem. If you don't figure out an answer to that problem, then you are abdicating your responsibility in that economic space. And that is unacceptable. That is not the way that this functions. That's not the way that you should function. That's not the way that any good self-respecting business functions. Your job, you're getting money to figure out solutions to these problems. So get off your ass and figure out solutions to the problems. I am going to go get a drink of water. I'm getting a little bit hoarse. I'm going to put a little bit sign up here that says be right back, and I'll be right back in about 10 minutes. So yeah, talk to you then. And I think that I am back. Okay. Now that I'm back, I would like to talk about I guess, kind of like the heart of the cafe, the drinks. Um, the drinks are obviously the drinks are the most important part of the cafe. People come to a cafe for coffee and tea and all of the ancillary bits that surround the coffee and tea, be it biscuits or croissants or pastry or any number of things. Um, uh, Ultra Mega Super Turbo will be what's called a third wave cafe, and it's a term that was kind of like self-created by a bunch of self-important cafes starting back in the 2000s to describe what they saw as a new generation of coffee preparation, where the first wave of coffee was basically post-World War II. The second wave of coffee was essentially Starbucks, and or the propagation of higher end coffee houses and the idea of coffee houses being a thing that were more than just like a diner where you go and got a cup of Joe. And the third wave is the artisan level treatment of coffee as a product, where you become invested in every step of the coffee preparation process. You're invested in the farmers and the farm and the development of the beans, the way that the beans are washed and allowed to ferment out in the sun, the way that the beans are roasted, where the beans are sourced from, the idea of single origin beans that come from only one area of the country. Relatively new thing, and the idea of buying beans exclusively from a single farm, which is something that's arisen in the last 5 to 10 years or so, is very new. And I have mixed feelings about this. For one thing, I think it's wonderful that more attention is being paid to coffee as a product and as a thing, because we've been doing it for chocolate for quite some time. And it's no surprise that coffee and chocolate very frequently have, chocolate is very frequently described as tasting like coffee, and coffee is very frequently described as tasting like chocolate, because it's very similar what you're doing, where you're taking these fruits, taking basically husking the fruit in the form of cocoa. It's these giant coconut-shaped things that you rip out the cocoa seed or the cocoa nut nibs, seeds. I mean, yes, the cocoa seeds out of, and with coffee, it's these tiny little red fruit that you then strip the coffee bean inside. You then allow them to ferment, you roast them, you grind them, you heat them up, you cool them down, you do all sort of good stuff with them. So they taste very similarly. We've had a high-end perspective on chocolate for really, I mean, at least since World War II, compliments of the French, and finally coffee is starting to get some of that attention as well. I also think that it's important because coffee is very destructive. It is large areas of the planet have been turned over to coffee preparation, and a lot of these people are being paid almost nothing for back-breaking labor. Your cup of coffee is your morning cup of coffee is quite possibly the most global thing that you will interact with, save for maybe your computer, every day. And that is not an exaggeration. Most of your clothing is manufactured in a single country. So like, your shirt might have been manufactured in China, and the source of the cotton may have been, Africa or North America, or South America. But your coffee could have been sourced from South America and the South Pacific Islands and Africa and Hawaii and Middle America, and all of these locations might have been sourced from all of them. It might have been sourced there and it like packaged up and fermented somewhere far away from the farm. And then when it's fermented from the farm, it's sent to an open market somewhere else. And then it's bought by major coffee distributors who centralize the entire thing somewhere else. And then that's sent to roasters who roast it. And that could be in a completely different country. And then it's shipped somewhere else. If you bought coffee from Italy, all Italy coffee is manufactured and roasted in Italy. But so that means that coffee that you bought that was roasted in Italy probably came from Africa, the South Pacific Islands, South America, and Middle America, all mixed together into the Italy blend. And I mean, the amount of fuel that is expended from this process is gigantic. Tankers, airplanes, trucks, roasters that are powered by propane, all of this, huge amounts of fuel, massive amounts of water, massive amounts of labor. And I think that it's very good and very important that a great deal of attention has been paid to this huge process to get you your cup of coffee in the morning. So think about that when you go to McDonald's, because they're running a promotion right now where you can get any size of coffee for $1. I have no freaking clue. They can't be making money off of that. And I'm assuming that's probably the point. They're trying to steal business away from Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks. But when you go in and you pay $1 for a tankard of coffee, think about all of the work and all of the money and all of the fuel and all of the water and the oxygen and the time that has gone into the creation of that little simple thing. And that's a big part of the third wave, looking at your cup of coffee and realizing that there is a lifetime of work and a world of resources in that cup. And UMST and I take that reality very seriously. We take that, very much take that to heart. And a lot of the third wave, so that's the positive element of it. I'm glad that these places are paying attention to this. I'm glad that they're bringing attention to the idea of fine flavors and fine treatment and fair trade payment and being an integral part of the broader industry. Because one of the old industry before this third wave revolution is that you would have the farmers who would ship it off to a local distributor, and then the farmers are no longer involved with it. Now it's a local distributor, and the local distributor is then associated with a regional distributor, and then that regional distributor is associated with some global conglomerate that buys all of these coffee beans as a commodity. And all of those commodities are traded on places like the Commodities Exchange Market in Chicago, and the prices can fluctuate wildly. And these can have incredibly deleterious effects on the lives of the farmers and all the people involved up to that point. And if you've ever heard about Nestle as a company to hate, because Nestle is kind of a company worth hating, a lot of that has to do with the way that they treat coffee, because Nestle is the world's largest coffee, essentially commodity broker. And they are really at the heart of this entire industry. So all of these third wave cafes like, well, no, we're not going to bother with all of that. Why bother with all of this mess, all of this overhead, if you don't have to? We are roasting our coffee beans for our customers. We are going to go right to the source. We are going to go down to the farms and interact directly with the farmers and directly pay the farmers. And when you do that, you're able to get better quality, because all these like levels of with all these levels of abstraction between you and the actual coffee production, you lose complete control over quality and where it's made and how it's made and who's making it. It's just, how can you expect to have any control over any of that when you're separated by so many steps? So that's another really positive element of the third wave. To strip away all of that fat and go directly to the farmers and say, we are going to work with you to create a good product, and we're going to work with you to make sure that you are happy with us and we are happy with you. This very personal, very, very, very personal, very human endeavor. And I think that's a great element of the third wave, that it makes the entire process very personal and very human. The negative element of the third wave is, I think it might, this might just be marketing, but is that they treat coffee as this transcendental thing, as though if you make a perfect espresso, you will like achieve samsara and go like leave behind the physical realm and go just. Like hang out with Brahma for the rest of the time. It's, I think that they go really over the top with some of their exaggerative language when describing the amazing experiences that you're going to have as a coffee drinker. And I think that some of that has to do with marketing, because it's just good marketing. They're trying to separate themselves from Starbucks. They're trying to separate themselves from Dunkin' Donuts. They're trying, and the Starbucks especially. They're the ones that kind of like pushed the whole idea of Starbucks as Charbucks, because Starbucks really heavily roasts all of their beans. And if you heavily roast a bean, well, all of those fine flavors that you're trying to find by sourcing your beans from a single farm or a single region go away. They're gone because you blasted them away with heat. So you're never going to taste them. But at the same time, and this really kind of hit home a little while ago, when I heard a third wave coffee cafe owner talking about coffee being the new wine. And I was like, oh, you don't want to be that. If you're a cafe owner, you don't want to be the new wine, because wine is bullshit. And we have tons of studies, scientific double-blind studies, showing that oenophiles, or I think it's oenophiles, I think that's how it's pronounced, O-N, or onophiles maybe, I forget. But wine connoisseurs, they can't tell the difference between a cheap wine and an expensive wine. No one can. I mean, you can, and at least with coffee, that's not entirely true. You can tell the difference between crap coffee and good coffee. And I think that's because, unlike wine, where when you open the bottle up, you've opened the bottle up. With coffee, coffee can go stale, coffee can be poorly roasted, coffee can have all of these things that go wrong with it, such that it tastes like garbage. So there is a difference, but you don't want coffee to be the new wine. You don't want coffee to be selling for $1,000 a pound. You don't want all of this crazy coffee, because it is not better than this other stuff. It is smoke and mirrors and puffery, and there's no foundation to it whatsoever. And again, as a business, it's not just you figuring out what's the message that we can sell to our customers, but how can we actually be better? And you can determine that with scientific experiment. You can determine that by testing your own products and better understanding what you're making. Wine is bullshit. That means that fine coffee is also bullshit. And I would imagine that if someone does a double-blind study of fresh coffee that's just roasted down the street, and the freshest, finest coffee in the world, that these coffee experts and connoisseurs will not be able to tell the difference. And that means that you're expending energy and expending thought and marketing on something that is not actually providing your customers with any value. Now, arguably, you could say that, well, if psychologically they think it's better, then it is better, and thus you are providing value. But yeah, but it's a trick, and I know that it's a trick, and I don't want to sell tricks. I want to sell the best cup of coffee, the best espresso, the best tea that I can, and sell it for as cheaply as I can. And that's it. You know, you're not going to see God when you're drinking my coffee, and I don't expect you to see God drinking my coffee. So that's that is the negative aspect of the third wave. And so I describe myself as third wave because I care about my customers, I care about the farmers, I care about the beans and the tea and the quality of everything, which is something that honestly, I know that Starbucks tries to say that they care, but sometimes I mean they're just unable to manage their own girth. And other companies, I mean, certainly don't give a crap, but somehow they always manage to produce a good cup of coffee. Dunkin' Donuts coffee is totally fine. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Dunkin' Donuts is a terrible corporation, as is McDonald's, but they manage to produce a completely fine cup of coffee. I have no idea how they're doing that. But moving on to further drinks. Tea. I mentioned it a couple of times. Tea is a major disappointment for me in a lot of cafes, not because I'm a major tea drinker. I'm an off and on tea drinker. That tea and coffee has very little demographic overlap. The people that drink tea generally do not drink coffee, and the people that drink coffee generally do not drink tea. And that means that if you were a cafe with a crap tea selection, that means that once again, you are taking up economic space and you are not maximizing your value, because there is a demographic there, these tea drinkers that are not coming into your cafe, and you are taking up a space where a tea house could have existed that would service these tea drinkers. So with that in mind, thinking about the lack of demographic overlap, I want to provide coffee. So I'm going to have, you saw in the video, the big spheres on the towers. Those are for cold drip coffee. The big single serve coffee drinker, or big single serve coffee machines in the back. Turkish coffee, pour over coffee, all these types of coffee available, siphon. I'm also going to have a gargantuan tea selection, far larger than anything that Starbucks offers, far larger than any of the local cafes are offering. And I would imagine that my tea selection will only be matched by specialty tea houses like Tea Lux on Thayer Street in Providence, or the Elephant Room in Pawtuxet in Warwick. Those are places that focus on their tea, and they have really wonderful tea selections because of that. That's my target. That's what I'm shooting for. A tea selection that runs pages long. Because if I'm going to have multiple types of coffee, I'm going to have multiple types of tea as well. I'm not just going to have like, oh, what do you have? Well, we got Earl Grey, and this stuff comes in a tin. You can have that. I'm not going to do that. So very, very large tea selection, and also multiple types of tea drinks, tea lattes, tea blends. Tea and coffee actually go wonderfully together if you know how to mix the coffee and the tea. I mean, certain teas taste horrible in coffee, but some of them taste delicious. I mean, really fantastically delicious when you basically take the tea and you soak it in the coffee for, say, 20 seconds. You don't want to put it in there for too long, but that's actually a fun tip if you're experimenting at home. Take your coffee and pour your coffee into a cup, and then go and just grab, I don't know, some random Twinings or something like that, some cheap tea to help you experiment, and dip the tea bag in your coffee for 10, 20 seconds, and then sweeten it and drink it. It's really delicious. I also mentioned in the video smoothies. Lots of places offer smoothies, and I'm a huge fan of smoothies. I think they're really wonderful drinks. I mean, they're drinks and meals all combined with each other. And after Fresh City closed on Route 2 a number of years ago, this is going back a little, but after Fresh City closed, the selection of places to go and get good smoothies, I mean, just fell off a cliff. I mean, I think there was like a Smoothie King or something like that in Emerald Square or something. There's a Smoothie King somewhere within like 100 miles. I forget where, but and Smoothie King locations aren't bad, but a lot of the smoothies there are just high calorie garbage, or like, oh, protein shake for big manly men who want to become muscly. And you have a lot of fat people, like fat guys, wandering in drinking these, like muscle smoothies, thinking that they're going to get ripped. And the muscle smoothie is just 1,500 calories of protein and sugar. Because yeah, if you're pumping iron all day long, that's exactly what you need. But Smoothie King relies far too heavily on smoothies as desserts, and they're borderline milkshakes. That a smoothie has low-fat yogurt, usually unflavored, frozen fruit, and a small amount of juice to basically just help mix it all up. That is a smoothie. That's a good smoothie. Fruit, juice, yogurt, and then I don't know, maybe like any additives like matcha powder or whatever, thrown in there. But other than that, that is what is in a smoothie. And so few places do that. Most of them go it's like, oh, well, we threw banana in there and some V8 Fusion, and there's some ice. That's not a smoothie. That's a slushy with a banana in it. That doesn't count. So again, lots of broad selection of smoothies available at the cafe. Very important. I really, everything that I love is going to be available at the cafe. What else? Other fun stuff. I focus on the bathroom in the cafe in that video, and I'd imagine a lot of people probably find that kind of funny. And I realized after making it and talking to some people about it, that my perspective of bathrooms, my negative perspective of bathrooms, might have been affected by the fact that I go into men's bathrooms. And I accidentally went into a woman's bathroom once at a Toys R Us because I really had to go to the bathroom badly. And I was in the stall when a bunch of women came in, and I realized what had happened. And I'm like, oh, that explains why all of this woman-oriented stuff is in this bathroom. But it was not a bathroom with like a lounge and scented perfume in it, like I expected. But that I might be negatively affected by my experience with male bathrooms. And men's bathrooms are really, they're disgusting sometimes. Swear to God, like men don't seem to know how to pee correctly. They're just like that. They walk until they're in the vicinity of the urinal, and then they just hose everything down. But a lot of cafes, because they're operating on smaller footprints, smaller square footage, that the bathroom is unisex. It's male or female, or a man or woman, because it's. I like unisex bathrooms because I'm very progressive. I'm very understanding of like gender identity issues and things like that. So I have a hard time with language sometimes. So I'm going to say man and woman. That the man or men's bathroom and women's bathroom, same room, and these rooms are always just like, I don't know, they're always disgusting. The floor is always wet. And I know a lot of that has to do with, like, maybe someone just recently mopped the floor. That's fine if someone just recently mopped the floor. It's still not all right that the floor is wet. That means that there's bacteria growing on the floor. And as I said, I'm not a germaphobe, but you don't want your bathroom to be a giant freaking petri dish. You have got to go in and figure out a solution to that problem. And believe me, I'm going to be dedicated to solving a solution to a solution to that problem. There's also the possibility, like, I've been near urinals in men's bathrooms, where it's not because someone mopped. That is pee on the floor, and there's a lot of it. And yeah, that's a concern. It's labor hours that you've got to dedicate to keeping that bathroom clean. It's either you or it's one of your employees, and you are paying them that time to do that. But again, because I also would like to pay my employees as much as I can, so like over $10 an hour. I don't know how much farther over 10 I could go, but I'd like to go as far as I can. So to do a good job in a bathroom would be like, I don't know, say an hour. Let's just go crazy. Let's say an hour. I think it might be less, especially if you set up all of your equipment to quickly go in and take care of the issue. So that means that you are paying someone $10 to go in and clean the entire bathroom and make it look great. As far as I'm concerned, that's a deal. That is a discount. That is a steal of value for the business owner. And if you have someone that is able to go in and do that multiple times per day to make sure that the bathroom is in impeccable condition all the time, that is a steal. So I mean, I'd be willing to do it, and I'm completely willing to spend the money on the labor hours to make sure that the cafe or the bathroom is also clean. I'm gonna have plants in the bathroom, all this other sort of stuff. Just make it as wonderful an experience as I can. The other area that gets wet is the area by the blow dryer. And there are three types of dryers. You've got the blade dryer, like the Dyson Airblade or the Mitsubishi Jet Towel, are the two big ones in the market, where you've got it's shaped like that, and you insert your hands down in there, and air is circulating around in there, and it whips at high speed in the cyclone. It almost rips the water off of your hands, those are very nice. I like those. The problem with the Dyson Airblade is that it doesn't collect the water, so the water gets sprayed all over the place. Once again, I mean, you've got that water there, and that's the doorbell. Someone's coming in, so don't worry about it. So you got all that water built up all over the place. I don't want to deal with actually, this is my MBA walking in. So I don't want that water to be whipped everywhere. I don't want it all over the floor. I want it contained. I want it dealt with. Some of my future employees. Hi, darling.
Hi, kid.
Minions. Yes, minions. That's a good word. So I don't want to use the Dyson Airblade. You also have those. You also have warm air dryers, and those are the ones that have been around for a very long time. They've been in bathrooms for decades, where you press the button on them, and relatively low velocity warm air comes out and allows you to dry your hands. And that's not a bad solution because it's using evaporation and heat to dry your hands as opposed to just simply blasting the water off of your hands. Because the other kind are the non-heated high-speed blowers that basically do the same thing as the Dyson Airblade, where it's just this jet of air blasting the water off of your hands, and it just goes everywhere. I mean, it just covers everything in water. I don't want that either. So the Mitsubishi Airblade or a jet towel is the one that actually collects water. There's a collection mechanism inside of it. And again, that does add labor because you have to have someone go in and empty the dryer. But I am willing and happy to pay that extra bit of labor for to guarantee that the bathroom is going to be in exceptional shape. Just other issues about bathrooms. I mean, the smell, maintenance of the equipment, what you're also offering. I want, I want a mouthwash dispenser in there, for example. I mean, I think that'd be a nice little touch. But I mean, that's all, just details and particulars. Moving on to the art in the cafe. Again, I've been a graphic artist and a marketer and a designer, interface designer, that sort of stuff for some time. And I love doing graphic art. I love sketching. I love creating wallpapers and rendering in 3D and sculpting and all that sort of good stuff. And I want to use this opportunity to essentially turn the cafe into a canvas, fill it with all of this art for not just the sake of giving me a canvas, but also just for filling it with something, putting some life in there, some expression, some excitement, and just a really really great direction for the cafe to take. That's what I want. It's the walls obviously going to be covered in art. All of the bags, the cups will probably change once a month, where every month is going to have a different cup, different design for the seasons or the month or holidays or something like that. All of the bags, the website, the social media presence, all going to be like covered in art, highly interactive, and all this other fun stuff. And I mean, that's that pretty much covers the art that I wanted to talk about. I have to admit, I mean, I think this pretty much, covers, I mean, I haven't gotten any questions. So, I will wait to elaborate on a lot of this until the next live stream. And yeah, I hope to see you there. The next live stream will be on Saturday, December 6th. And that's going to be in the early afternoon because it's on a Saturday instead. I did this to try to best capture anyone coming out of work. Yeah, so, bring your questions. Saturday, December 6th, you'll be able to view it right on the Kickstarter page. If you're viewing it from the Kickstarter page, hi. Or you can also go to my Google Plus page, my personal one, and my YouTube account. All of it will be available on there. And, you can also send questions in via the Kickstarter that I'll be able to answer in greater detail in the video. And I hope to see you there. Yeah, so thanks for joining me. And I hope to get your support. And I hope that you really like the idea of a cafe that just really is dedicated to, being as much as it can be, being more than a cafe, pushing everything forward. And because it's excited about pushing it forward. I'm excited about pushing it forward. I'm excited about innovating and excited about doing new stuff and better stuff. I'm really I'm vibrating with excitement. So again, thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you there Saturday, December 6th, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Bye.